Good evening, and welcome along to Rob and Elliott tonight. It's good to have your company with us once again. Coming up on the show, we'll be meeting the founder of A Woman with Altitude, adventurer Elise Wortley is going to be with us.
One thing I found was that actually they would put trousers sneakily on underneath the dresses and things, and then they'd get out of the main towns where they lived and they would take their dresses off and go and climb mountains.
We'll be meeting a man who you may not recognise his face, but you will definitely recognise his Belfast-inspired artwork. Former Presbyterian minister turned artist Keith Drury joins us in the studio.
So I thought, well, what if we were to take Belfast and make Belfast and then somehow just slide it around the globe a little bit until it's down at the latitude of Barcelona. So light it up a little bit, give it a lot of colour, make it look really warm. What would Belfast look like that?
We'll be finding out about a very special event taking place this weekend. It's been organised by Memory Stones of Love, and we'll be chatting to Brenda Doherty.
Memory Stones of Love for us is a project that we want to unite grief. And we want to celebrate the people that should have had the celebration of life.
And we'll have music from Pinsleep. But as always, let's begin the show with a quick look back at some of the more quirky news stories of the week. We're chatting about International Women's Day, and to help us do it, we've got the lady herself, Kim Kelly, in the studio. How are you?
I'm great, and a very happy International Women's Day to you. And before you ask me, November.
Yes.
And every day. Because
what do you mean every day? What do you mean every day?
Robin, being a typical man, is going to say, but when's International Men's Day?
Yeah.
Because you know that's what they all say, so it's in November, guys.
So you have to wait the whole way to November.
Yeah, but really, we all know that it's every day of the week.
Right, okay.
Because it's a man's world, isn't it?
Right, in the words of Shania Twain, this will be a cue for a song from you, the best thing about being a woman.
A survey, you know I love a survey. So the best things about being a woman. So what are the best things about being a woman? You're not one, obviously. One of the best things on this list was the friends you meet in toilets. The friends you meet whenever you go out at night and you're maybe in a bar toilet and you meet these great girls in there and they're telling you that you're amazing. You're going, he doesn't deserve you. You bond, the bonding.
I've always wanted to ask, do you ladies actually enjoy those conversations in the toilet?
That's female bonding in the toilet. There's nothing like it.
It would never happen in a man's toilet.
No. Different kind of bonding in there, is there?
Different kind of smell for a start, you know.
No, women just love that. Women just go in there and there's always somebody crying. Because there'll always be somebody either crying or like on their phone shouting. And then you go, are you okay, babe? And then it gets into a whole, and he did this and he did that. And you're like, oh, no way, he doesn't deserve you.
I know a lady's toilet that you're going to love, right? Don't ask me how, I have been in it, right?
The mind boggles.
For the purposes of entertainment and filming, I've been in it.
Yeah.
The Haymarket in Belfast has a stock exchange venue on the side. And the ladies' toilets, when you go into it, is done up like a disco. So you press a button and the disco ball flashes around and Shania Twain plays and all these female anthems.
Get in there today, ladies, or tomorrow. Get in there. We need to get in there. Another good thing about being a woman is we know how to take a picture. Now, I know that some of the top photographers in the world are men, but do they really know how to take a picture? Do they really know how to take a picture?
And she said that I
don't
know
have
who
a
your
double
ex-husband
chin?
is.
My ex-husband won a Pulitzer Prize for photography. However, I take better pictures because if I take a picture of you, you're not going to have a double chin.
No.
Like, you know, men who say, oh, I'll take the picture, and they go really low and you're like this. And you're like, men do you dirty. They do you dirty whenever, so that's another skill that women have. And of course, the biggest skill that us women have is the fact that we live longer than men.
Yeah, that's...
We do, we live considerably longer than men. Yeah. So here's to being a woman.
Exactly. So of course we are celebrating all things.
We are, yes. Now tomorrow there's a couple of really fun things that are happening in Belfast if you're nearby. There's a couple of walking tours, which I thought were great. Now one of them is about well-behaved women not really making history. So it's a walking tour of Belfast where I assume they're going to show you all the bad girls. Who doesn't want to see that? I think that'd be great. That's on Eventbrite. And the other one was called something like Well-Dressed Hallions, and it was about the suffragette movement.
Right, okay.
So I thought that sounded really cool as well. I think they're both kicking off from somewhere like Botanic Gardens. Go on to Eventbrite. I'm sure they'll not be sold out, and they look like super fun, and you get your steps in, ladies.
Yes, but then of course the ladies who are watching this right now will probably want to know what's happening in the Beehive this weekend.
It's the Pleasure Boys.
You're dying to go, I know you are.
To celebrate International Women's Day, the Pleasure Boys have decided to come back. I was actually going to pause there to explain who the Pleasure Boys were. Does anybody need me to explain? They're strippers.
They all know. They've seen the photographs that circulated
we
from
saw
the
those
Devonish
pictures,
when they were there.
The Devonish. The pictures that circulated after that would have made your toes curl. But you know, they were having a good time. Anyway, the Pleasure Boys have decided, they've been back once, so they were back in Banbridge.
They did Banbridge,
but you're not allowed cameras this time.
I'm not surprised.
I
am not surprised.
So they're back tomorrow night. Is that on the Falls Road?
Yes.
Get yourself over there, because I mean, apparently, I don't know, it is a show not to be missed. You don't have to interact. They're not going to make you. So unless you want to. If you want to, you can interact.
Would you interact?
No. Because I did once have a stripper on my birthday, and it was the most traumatic experience I've ever had. I sat in my hands. Because he was trying, it was I don't know what, it was awful. So I was sitting and they're like, oh, letting this guy come in. And he wasn't even particularly good looking. And he started
that's what it was,
and he was kind of a bit greasy, and I'm not right, I'm just going to put it out there. He didn't smell great. And it was too much up close. And he was like, I just want this, and sat in my hands. And I was like, no, this is not for me. I know other girls love it, I don't love it.
And what about the baby oils? Do you like all that?
I didn't touch them, so I don't know. I'm not into strippers of either sex. Sorry, people who are strippers.
Okay, we've learned something new again. And finally, there's a woman you want to do a shout out for.
Yeah, big shout out to the woman in Florida. Big happy International Women's Day to her. This woman has been arrested, unfortunately. She wanted to get revenge on her boyfriend. As you know what happens, he was cheating on her. So she thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm really cross. I'm going to go to his house and I'm going to spray paint it and I'm going to throw eggs at it. So she did it dirty. She spray painted this car. All really quite rude words she put across it. Wasn't his car. It was his next door neighbour's car.
Oh no.
So of course the police came and she said, listen, I was just really cross. And they're like, yeah, but anyway, she's been done for drunkenness and misbehaviour, two things that I love, you know. Two things that I enjoy. So fair play to her for, you know, the effort she went to. Not that I'm suggesting that anybody would go out and spray paint their boyfriend's car, but if you are going to do it, make sure you get the right car.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
definitely. Yeah, right. Kim
let's
Kelly,
give it a big International Women's Day to that girl.
Right. Have a great International Women's Day to you as well. And let's play some music now from a talented woman on International Women's Day. Here is Aga and Pinsleep, and this is called Each Time.
Whether to meet the wind this time. Part of me would prefer to hide, go together for an inner ride, through the beauty that I never find, through the landscapes and colors of my mind. I'm scared of the world outside. 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 leaves me to decide whether to meet the black this time. Part of me would prefer to hide, turn my face and look straight to the sun. Be quick enough to chase the light, to see its colors and stay alive. I'm afraid of the world inside. I'm afraid of the world inside. I'm afraid of the world inside. I'm afraid of the world inside.
There we go, fabulous music video. That's called Each Time. That's from Pinsleep, and I'm pleased to say that Aga from Pinsleep joins us in the studio. How are you today?
Hello, thank you very much. Yes, I'm feeling good, especially as the spring seems to be coming to Belfast. Finally, after many long months of darkness. Indeed,
yeah. So you've been busy, you've been on tour and stuff. We'll talk about the tour in a second. Of all the instruments in the world, why the violin then?
Well, this is just the instrument I've been playing since I was 6.
Yeah.
I actually don't know why I started playing the violin in the first place, because I was supposed to play a piano, which I started at the age of 3.
Yeah.
And then I went for exams to a music school in Poland, because I'm from Poland. And in my country, like, you have to, at the age of 6, you have to pass an exam for a state music school.
Okay.
And that's where your fate as a musician is being decided, like that early.
Yeah.
That's when you hear like, yes, you can be a musician and you can't.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty competitive and pretty tough for a 6-year-old.
Exactly.
But but for some reason during that exam I just said I want to play the violin.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why.
Okay.
I think I probably must have seen a violinist somewhere and it just it inspired me.
Yeah.
So my parents were in shock because I don't know, the piano was already bought. I was playing already for 3 years and they thought they have a plan.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there came the violin. Yeah, so but the teachers were really, they were really supportive, and they asked my family to respect.
Yes.
Which is also really beautiful, because
Yeah.
they really heard the voice of a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And said, well, listen to her. If she says violin, let's give it a go.
And that's a million miles away from the stuff you're doing at the minute, and the stuff you're producing is pretty unique. So where's the kind of influences come from? Because I was trying to put you in a little box and say she sounds like this person. It's very difficult to do. The closest I think I got to, I was thinking about Laurie Anderson the other night and Superman and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is great for me to hear, because she is definitely one of the people.
Yeah.
And it maybe even more so now that I started exploring the topics of the technology and the woman, the topic of being a woman working with technology.
Yeah.
Also, she would speak a lot about she's looking from a point of being an activist, and this is something interesting to me, to bring the wider topics into my work. So definitely Laurie Anderson. Well, at the heart of everything there is classical music.
Yeah.
Because this is where I come from, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do through my music. I'm trying to connect the past sort of with the future, and I wouldn't like to cut the ties. So I'm still carrying my instrument with everything that is, with all the little boxes you can see it through. But I'm still actually trying to invite the violin to a more modern look.
Yes.
Onto pop music.
Yeah.
So in one way, it's like breaking out of the classical box, but also I can see from the other hand, sometimes pop music also can be a space which isn't entirely open, and sometimes could use an even more creative approach, and maybe some live influences. Yeah, so I'm also trying to not only to undermine or to open the classical box, but sometimes I think the pop music can also be enriched as well.
Oh, definitely. And music is your life. I mean, you're performing, but you're also studying still at the moment as well. And we're talking off the air there about the changes in music and stuff, and you're kind of embracing AI. Is that the next wave for music? Is that the next big thing?
Well, this is definitely, like I've heard recently, a train that has already left the station, and you either are on it or you are not. So that's why I'm basically trying to be on it, but not in a way that is like, without any reflection. Because I think, definitely this is a part of the future of music, and we cannot deny it. Yeah. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have, like, myself as a musician and other musicians still having a voice and an influence on how this is going to look like for us.
Is it cheating in a way?
It depends on what you do with it.
Yeah.
Because I guess if you like ask the AI to make music just with one click and kind of like just instead of you, or if you are interested in how AI can recreate the music that already has been done, these are the areas that aren't really interesting. And I think AI may actually outpace humans here very soon, because this isn't really where the creativity lies. Yeah. And also there is the question of the big tech, how the companies are using the existing data. Yeah. This is fueling the actual discussion now about the use of the copyright music. Yeah. And here, like, I am standing definitely with the musicians. We need to protect the rights. Yeah. And I'm also thinking we need to protect the craft. Yes. Because for me it's not really so fulfilling if my craft is like no longer relevant, but I can actually create music just with a one click. It's where is the space for my story, for like actually living an experience and making music from that point of view. And I think this is also what the audiences are. We are all, as humans, we are connecting to actually real life experiences, to stories. Yes. Yeah. So if on other end there's a lack of this, then I hope this will still be, a factor which is really important. On the other hand, I can also see the AI as a kind of new player in the game, as an entity that is also building their story. Yeah. Because we humans learn often through mimicking. That's how we learn music from ourselves, yes, and it always has been like this. And now there is the machine which actually can learn and develop, and it also is building its own identity and its own story. So definitely that voice should be heard. Yeah. But it's the question of how we approach it. So I'm trying to look at it from a perspective maybe of a woman, which is more, instead of outpowering, outcompeting one another, I'm asking how we can actually create something that's maybe even more interesting, that hasn't happened before, together. Yeah. So that's my take on it. But definitely it's not, I'm still finding how this could work. Yeah. So I'm inviting AI as part of my one-woman show. And I treat it as a performer and as a voice and as a creative voice, but it's just one of the voices contributing to it. Yeah. I don't want to tell the story only about the AI or the AI to overtake what I'm doing, but I'm looking for a more balanced way of how to work around this. Brilliant. Let's talk about the tour as well. You're just back off tour. You're on tour with Alexis French. And in Belfast, you got to play the iconic Ulster Hall. I mean, that must have been amazing. Well, definitely. That really was something, because it seems like, to play that venue is a really special thing, especially as I have the history of playing these kind of halls for many years, but mostly as part of another formation, either an orchestra or a band. And to actually be there by myself and being able to send my message, it's a completely different level. Yeah. So it was a fantastic feeling to be able to hear how my project sounds in such space, because you never get to know unless you are in this space, and there are questions like, oh, can I accommodate this whole room and all of this with my sound. Yeah. But this actually gave me a lot of confidence, the performance, because I realized it actually works. Yeah. There is definitely enough going on. Yeah. So just enjoyed every moment of it, and you did the English dates as well. Yes. And how did your music go down across the mainland then? Yeah, well, it was another set of amazing experiences. It was great to connect to audiences. I was in Bristol, I was in Birmingham, and in Manchester, or all big venues and packed shows, because Alexis French is obviously a very popular musician. Yeah. And I met lots of new people, and people were really expressing like being surprised in a positive way.
Yeah.
So they were, I got lots of feedback from people who were, who just didn't expect something like I do, the combination of violin, voice, and electronics. And also like the stage persona, because I actually perform as an alien, someone who is visiting Earth.
Yeah.
So I have a costume, and this is all. The whole show is going like through a character.
Right. Okay. So we're going David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust kind of as well. Yeah.
Definitely, like space inspirations exactly.
Yeah.
There, and it actually allows me. It feels like this kind of approach allows me to speak about the message behind my music, which is like looking at all different genre styles from a more global perspective. Mm-hmm. Yes, and this idea of like not wanting to be boxed into any of this. So actually, I always say I needed to go as far as to space.
Yeah.
To find the right perspective on what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Well, what's next for you then? Is there any gigs in the pipeline that we should know about?
Yeah, I'm working on the next gigs and releasing music a lot, because the pieces I've been performing, it's all part of my self-produced album.
Yes.
Which I am releasing piece by piece, taking the freedoms of being an independent musician and going at my own pace. And it's going to be out in autumn. So yes, so definitely, I would encourage everybody just to follow Pinsleep on Instagram, Facebook, and just get on the spaceship with me, because definitely there will be shows coming up and releases, so a lot to look forward to.
Everybody will now be jumping on board that spaceship with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having
me.
And
best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
Okay, time to get another guest on. This time it's a man who you probably won't know his face, but you will definitely know his famous Belfast artwork that is everywhere. We're talking about Keith Drury. He's got a brand new exhibition. We're going to find out all about it because he joins us now in the studio. How are you, sir?
I'm well, Robin. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me here.
You're somebody who I've wanted to have on the show for a long time, so I'm glad we've kind of got you in, because I've been in your gallery on the Belmont Road many times over the years, right?
Sure.
And it causes issues between me and Mrs. E, because I love the artwork. It's all famous scenes of Belfast, but there's too much of it. We can never decide which one we want for the living room. It's difficult.
It's a crisis,
isn't it?
Yeah, pick two rooms.
And just have two, exactly.
Yeah, that's his and hers.
That's the way to do it. So everybody knows this famous Belfast artwork. I mean, it's everywhere these days. Yeah. So how did the idea for all that come about in the beginning then?
Well, I mean, I think for many artists, it's not so much by plan or preparation, it's more just an evolution of where you are. I think I had always thought the city is important.
Yeah.
The city tends to be the places where we live, we work, we interact, we're engaged. So I've always felt cities are important in terms of social community.
Yeah.
And so I always thought there was quite a negative thing about Belfast amongst many people, even younger people, and sometimes understandably so.
Yes, yeah.
We've been through hard times, but there was a sense of, what does Belfast ever do? What's good about Belfast? And then there were simple things like, like the rubber tires on your car were invented in Belfast.
Yes, yeah.
And there were just so many things, from air conditioning to ejector seats to four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
There was just so much that came out of Belfast that whenever you start to get that list, you think, well, how can so much come out of such a small city?
Exactly. Yeah.
How can that actually happen? And that's before you go to literature and to the writings and the poetry and the scripture and all the different things that have been created here. And I think I thought, well, everybody loves Barcelona.
Yes.
Nobody comes back and says, oh, really ugly city, So I thought, well, what if we were to take Belfast and make Belfast and then somehow just slide it around the globe a little bit until it's down at the latitude of Barcelona. So light it up a little bit, give it a lot of colour, make it look really warm. What would Belfast look like that? And I think I started off trying to create this nice image of Belfast that was positive, and then we've always tried to bring stories into it. The very latest artwork, actually, we have been bringing in buildings that are now long gone from Belfast.
Yes, exactly.
And just trying to celebrate the city in terms of colour, in terms of warmth, in terms of just activity and things that are happening, and tell something of the stories.
Yeah.
Which is why sometimes you'll find a random Dunlop tower lying in the corner of a picture.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it came from.
Did you always set out to be an artist?
No. No, I told my father that I was thinking about doing an art degree or doing art, and his answer was that art is what you do when you come home after a proper day's work.
Right, okay.
My sister, who was probably much more intelligent than I am, she went on ahead and did her degrees and various things, and we both enjoyed art. And at the very end, by the time my father was dead, I was working as a professional artist, and my sister was a lecturer in the art college.
Right.
So we both ended up in art.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something I ever set out to do.
I mean, you've had a varied career. I mean, you were a Presbyterian minister as well.
Yeah, I worked in Shorts before that.
Yeah?
Worked in the health service for a while, and then after that into art, and then became a book designer. I worked in book design for a while as well, and then we eventually got into book writing.
Yes, yeah.
And then the art at that point was starting to dominate.
Exactly, yes.
You know, so people ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm currently an artist.
Yeah, which is what you are. Yeah. And of course, you've got the new art inspired by Alice in Wonderland as well, but We're All Mad Here.
We're all mad here.
Fabulous title.
Yeah, well, it's kind of connected to the story.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the kind of ideas behind this then, this collection?
Well, it celebrates neurodiversity in essence, not totally or totally strictly, but it celebrates a little bit of left of centre and a little bit of right of centre, if you like. So we call it neurodiversity for a broad term, but we use the term We're All Mad Here just to be a little bit more of a collective overall general term. And it came largely from, we were Deborah and myself were patrons of the National Autistic Society, and have been for some years. I can't remember 8 years, maybe something like that.
And you weren't diagnosed as well with autism until you were in your 50s as well?
Yeah, late 50s, yeah.
Wow.
So it all came from whenever we did shows, and there's one on this week, Love Your Home show again, this weekend. Whenever we did those shows and we would have like a wall of all of our art, it became apparent, quite obvious, that every now and again a child would be kind of like lost on the floor, and after an hour you'd begin to think, it's a long time to look at my art, just sitting my crossed-legged on the floor. And we would find that quite often parents would say to us, my child's autistic, and they seem to have got locked into your art as if they're counting the bricks in each building.
Yes, yeah.
And after a while we began to think there's some strange connection. It happens too often.
Yes, yeah.
There's something about my art and autism that seems to connect, and we weren't sure what it was, but my wife was doing a PhD at the time, and it was an educational doctoral degree. And at that point she had left education and had moved into the company to try and organise my life and the other staff, because if I tried to organise the other staff, we were all going to go down a rabbit hole together. So she had joined to try and bring some sense to the whole thing. Yeah. And at that point, because she'd moved out of education, she thought to herself, well, what if we were to do the doctoral degree in terms of the research aspect of it into autism? And so at that time we had a games development programmer working for us, and we were creating VR environments where you'd be walking through one of my pictures and you could open the doors and walk through, and we called it wrongality, where the children would go through a scene and they would open doors and they would do this, they would do that, and everything would work perfectly. Yeah. And then the second time, once they felt that they understood what they were doing and they could go faster at the game, we'd press a button and things would start to go wrong. The door wouldn't open, and they would try to open the door and they just wouldn't open. And we were trying to find areas where they would find it very frustrating, heading almost towards a meltdown. But instead of having a meltdown, we were trying to show them different routes they could take to try and solve the problems. Yeah. Airports are often an issue for autistic children in terms of you have all the noise and things going on. And so we would take them through an airport, and then we'd have a large tannoy noise. And we were trying to prepare kids for whenever they would actually, in reality, be in an airport scenario. So we were trying to do things like that. And so that's, the whole thing kind of developed from there. And I think one day, I mean, I'd like to think this is a normal husband-wife kind of discussion. Yes, yeah. Where your wife just turns around and says to you, "You're autistic." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "You are?" I said, No, I'm not." I said, "I'd be too good with people." And I based my whole diagnosis on and that I'm too good with people.
But did you know there was something different throughout the years?
Yes, I did actually, yeah.
They called you lazy at school, didn't they? Which was crazy.
Well, that was my first diagnosis. I'm probably not the last one to get that diagnosis either. I think I wasn't kind of reaching my markers that they would expect.
Yeah.
In terms of speech, I had very late development of speech. School to me was an awful place.
Yeah.
I really struggled in school, and I always persistently came last in class. So there was 30 people, 29 was a good mark for me.
Yes, yeah.
If there was 28, then 27.
Yeah, but then art was your thing.
I tried not to be the last.
Yeah, but art was your thing, obviously.
Yeah. Yes, and I actually remember, strangely, whenever in primary school, I think I was sent up to educational psychologist, and I guess they were looking at special needs, whether I had to be transferred in school. Mm-hmm. I came back as above average intelligence, so therefore I got the diagnosis of being lazy. Yeah. That was the only other option. And back then, whenever I was young, I mean, autism would have been diagnosed, it would have been the severe cases of autism.
Yes, yeah.
That would have been diagnosed, not people lower on the spectrum.
Did you struggle when you were working as a minister? Because, I mean, communication is a big part of that job as well.
It was a problem at the start. I remember one of the professors came to me and he said, "Keith, I noticed you haven't actually preached."
Right.
And I thought, well, yeah, I have a theory on that. I didn't quite articulate that theory to him because I knew where that was going to end up.
Yeah.
My theory when I went into the church, it was a bad theory. It was whole below the waterline without me knowing it.
Okay.
And that was, I'd watched a film called Children of a Lesser God, which must have come out at
86 it was, yeah.
Well, okay. Okay, it's quite precise. It's very precise. I was going to give you an approximate. Obviously, before I decided to go into the church anyway. Yeah. So I'd watched this film, and I think I always had this thing about trying to help people. And I'd watched this film, and I thought, I could maybe do something that would help people. And somewhere in my mixed up thinking, maybe blame that on autism, maybe I was thinking, atypically. Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, I will go into the church and my job will be to work with deaf people.
Right, yeah.
So I won't actually preach. Yeah. I'll do hand movements.
Yes.
And all sorted.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to take the professor in college through that.
No.
An old, stern Presbyterian professor who probably wasn't going to get that, and who probably was going to say, "Talk me through the film thing again, that you based your call." Yeah. So I didn't want to go there. I was probably working harder. I was the one who's writing my sermons maybe 3 weeks in advance of them, practicing it every single day.
Yes.
So that by the time I came to deliver it, it was almost inside. So
you don't miss those days then?
No, I don't miss those days, and I don't miss all the problems associated with church and the fights and the committees and sessions. No. Escape.
Yes, exactly. Tell us about We're All Mad here as well. Talk us through some of the paintings, because again, Belfast pops into them in the shadow of the cranes.
Yeah, in the shadow of the cranes, they all have different kind of meanings. I would say they're very layered. Mm-hmm. So there's probably a lot more going on in them than what you might originally think on a kind of a customary look. The Shadow of the Cranes, for example, is probably one of the more simple ones. Yeah. Out of all of them, it was the first one.
Right.
And the idea is it kind of represented autism, where people maybe don't necessarily... It's a kid in the playground who never gets picked to play on the football team.
Yes.
He's always the last one where the teacher says, "Okay, and Jimmy over to that team."
Yes.
And the team all go, "Ooh, we've got Jimmy."
Yes.
And Jimmy doesn't really play. Jimmy kind of stands there and looks around him. And the idea is that sometimes for people who are neurotypical, they don't necessarily get the whole idea of chasing the football.
Yeah.
They're the kind of ones you think, well, why play golf? Why spend all this time to hit the ball away from you and then spend all this time trying to find it?
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah.
So they're the ones who kind of don't quite get it. But the point of the painting is, however, if your friends are happy to play around you and they say, "That's okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy's just standing there doing his own thing. We don't mind. We just play around him. Jimmy's happy too." And they're all happy. So the idea is that neurotypical people do have a place in community. If people can understand, it's okay, he's on our team. He's not actually going to play the ball.
Yes,
but it's okay. Jimmy's good at other stuff.
Yeah.
Jimmy actually knows the score.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever
yes.
we have no idea and we all have an argument, is it 7-5 or what is it?
Yeah.
Jimmy says it's actually 7-6. And everybody knows, well, Jimmy's always right about
yes,
numbers.
Exactly. The one that stood out for me as well was the Jester's Muse. That was the first one that caught my eye.
Yeah, it was a self-portrait, yeah. Didn't really want to do a self-portrait and didn't actually find it particularly easy. My wife said, yeah, you're going to think I'm quite controlled by my wife. She said, you have to do a self-portrait. Yeah. And I said, why? She said, you've never done a self-portrait. So I thought, well, I'll do two in one go. Yeah. So we have the Jester. Yes. He is kind of looming large in the painting behind myself. Yeah. They're both me. And he's looming large in this kind of pose, as if he's trying to escape from the painting. Yeah. And I'm sitting below the painting, reading Alice in Wonderland, trying to do my research. Yeah. And Through the Looking Glass as well. That's another one that stood out. Yes, it was the last one that I did. Yeah. And in fact, in many ways, it kind of talks about agoraphobia in some ways. Or, I would say different layers. So at the very highest level, agoraphobia, people who can't leave that room. Yes. And they're looking through the window. Yeah. But it also applies to all of us. And I would say the neurotypical elements in these pictures actually apply to everyone. Yeah. So that one in terms of being locked in a room, that applies to COVID. That applies to a generation who are on their phones. It applies to a generation where the high streets and the main streets are being lost in front of us, where the shops are closing. And it's also saying, well, the main street is actually part of community. It's a place where you can walk anytime and sit in a chair and just watch life going by. Yeah. They are important areas of society and community, the fabric of society. And so the paintings reflected all levels, being locked in our rooms a little bit too much, not getting out enough. Yeah. And so that, but it also was the last picture, and I wanted to bring the city into it. Exactly, to kind of cross narrative back to what I'm known for in terms of the urban landscape. Brilliant. Well, if people want to check out the exhibition, it's running at the Ards Arts Centre at the moment. Arts Centre for the rest of this month and next month as well. And then if you want to check out your other stuff, of course, the gallery's on the Belmont Road, isn't it? Yeah, it's all on the Belmont Road. If you want to see it in the Belmont Road too, it's also there, and all the other art and the new one that we're releasing this week. Excellent. Well, Keith, it's been great meeting you. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you, Robin. And the best of luck with the art. Thanks very much. Thank you. Right, time now for our What's On guide. Let's see what's happening throughout Belfast and beyond over the next week or so. We're starting off at the Ulster Hall on the 8th of March, and award-winning comedian Sophie McCartney returns to Belfast with 1 foot in the rave at the Ulster Hall. Now, the largest food event in Northern Ireland, bringing together all things foodie, is back at the Econ Exhibition Centre between the 7th and 9th of March. It's the Love Your Food Show. And with over 100 local food exhibitors and stalls, there's sure to be something for everyone. Sample local food and drink produce, from fresh bread, delicious desserts to an array of cheeses and preservatives. We're sure you'll be walking away with some tasty treats. You can also visit the Kitchen Theatre, where you can watch and learn from expert chefs while they perform live cooking demonstrations. And you'll also get the chance to see the Springboard Future Chef finalists as they cook up their final dishes throughout the weekend. Let's move on to the Grand Opera House, and dear Evan Hansen is in town between the 11th and the 15th of March, and we'll meet Evan, who's an anxious high school kid who wants nothing more to fit in. The thing is, on his way to fitting in, he didn't tell the whole truth and now must give up on a life he never dreamt he had. And if you're a country music fan, make sure you head along to the SSE Arena here in Belfast between the 14th and the 16th of March, as Country to Country is back in town. This year, names like Lainey Wilson, Dierks Bentley and Cody Johnson will all be taking to the stage, along with Dylan Gossett, Tyler Hubbard, Chase Beckham, Shabuzi, Tucker Wetmore and Nico Moon as well. And returning favourites Nate Smith, 49 Winchester and Avery Anna are also on this year's lineup. And finally for now, if you want to catch a movie in cinemas this weekend, the one that everybody is talking about is Mickey 17. The unlikely hero, Mickey Barnes, played by Robert Pattinson, has found himself in the extraordinary circumstance of working for an employer who demands the ultimate commitment to the job: to die for a living. Here's a clip of Mickey 17.
How lucky can one guy be? Nothing was working out, and I wanted to get off of Earth.
You're applying to be an expendable?
Yeah.
You read through the whole application.
Ain't that a kick in the head? Yeah, I should have read through it.
Once you die, we'll print a new version of your body.
They made me work my ass off on one mission after another.
Every time you die, we learn something new, and humanity moves forward.
Oh, man, he's alive. It's fine. My life is gonna be beautiful.
Vicky, it's not looking very good for you.
Yeah, no.
I'm sure you're used to it by now, but what's it feel like to die?
Even on my 17th go-around, I hate dying.
Right, next up we're going to find out all about a very special event taking place this coming Sunday at number 2 Royal Avenue. It's the National Day of Reflection, and it's been organised by a great project called Memory Stones of Love. Brenda Doherty joins us now in the studio to tell us more about the project. Good to see you, and congratulations on the big award that you won last weekend.
Yes, thank you, Robin. It was a fantastic evening, and it was lovely to be in a room with so many inspirational people, and I mean the children were just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I think it's really good to acknowledge the work that women do in Northern Ireland, because sometimes we still feel that we get a wee bit left behind. So it meant an awful lot to, I think, everybody that was there.
Exactly. Now tell us about Memory Stones of Love. That this was set up to remember all those people who sadly lost their lives during the COVID pandemic.
Yes. So Mum was one of the first to die of COVID on the 24th of March 2020, and that was like such a time where unfortunately there was no wakes, there was no celebration of life, there was no opportunity to come together. Mum didn't have a funeral, Mum had a committal. So I was very vocal at that time, and I made sure that everybody would know Mum's name as Ruth Burke, and that she wouldn't be number 4. And from that, every time I seen somebody on the TV or heard about somebody, I was sending them a message via messenger. And then December 2020, I said to my sister, you know, we're going to come on the first anniversary of this, and I don't think anything's going to happen. So I started contacting all the councils in Northern Ireland to light the buildings up yellow. Yeah. And unbeknownst to me, another gentleman, Kieran Ward, who had connected in with Marie Curie, was doing the same thing. So people were saying to me, oh, it's okay, Kieran's been involved. And then people were saying to Kieran, oh yes, we've spoke to Brenda. Kieran and I didn't know each other at that stage, but we were both part of COVID Bereaved Families for Justice UK. And then as we posted links, we connected. So then we thought, well, look, we see all these things happening across the UK, but there's nothing here in Northern Ireland. So Kieran, he lost both his parents to COVID in November 2020, within 12 hours of each other. Wow. So we decided we wanted to do something, and a lady called Rima from New Jersey had contacted Kieran because Kieran had his parents been over in New Jersey, and she started a project over there in memory of her brother.
So there's a photograph in the book here, and it's an absolutely stunning photograph.
Yeah. So what started out as her setting some shells on a beach is now a massive project and is one of the first memorials in the US. And so we were inspired by Rima, and we did Zoom calls, and the next thing Kieran and I knew, we did a mini event in March 2021, and then in September 2021 we had our first stone show up in Stormont, but from then I suppose that really showed us that the stones weren't just stones, and what they meant to people. And we started up a Facebook page, which now has just under 94,000 followers. Yeah. And separate to that, we have a private support group because people want to share their experiences and they want to do it privately. And people are still struggling. Yeah. You know, years on. And somebody actually said to me the other day in a chat that they feel in a worse position now. Really? Than they did, because people expect you to move on. Yes, yeah. And you don't move on. Yeah. You don't get over your bereavement. No. You find a way to live with it and you move forward. You know, I lost my brother whenever he was only 16 in 1984. So that was my first experience. He died of cancer. And I can remember saying to my mummy, I don't want to live.
Mm-hmm.
And mummy said to me, you have a life and you have to live it for not only yourself, but for Richard, because he never got the chance. So that's what I hold on to when I think about my mummy, you know, because she showed us how to go around your grief. My mummy and my daddy were broken when my brother died.
Yeah.
But my mum, I always say she was my inspirational woman. She was a woman of strength, but not afraid to show her pain and sorrow. And it's okay to do that. It's important to do that. And I think that's one of the things why this event's important to us on Sunday, because it's about bringing people who are bereaved, no matter how their loved one died. It's not just COVID. We have people who lost their life to cancer, to MS, to suicide. You know, so we have quite a mix there, but we share the one common that we are all grieving together. And whether your loved one died of COVID or another illness, we all lost out.
Yeah.
Because many people died on their own who unfortunately didn't have COVID either.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's why Memory Stones of Love for us is a project that we want to unite grief.
Yeah.
And we want to celebrate the people that should have had the celebration of life. You know, I can remember my daddy when my daddy passed, and you know, his wake and people coming to the house. And I remember like months later finding boxes of tea bags that we'd hid because there was no room to put them. And you know, and I know that would have been the same for my mum.
Yeah, yeah.
So we come together. We always have a fantastic turnout. We get great support from families. We're hoping this time round we will actually get some of our local politicians maybe attending, but I'll not hold my breath. You know, I know their diaries fill up, but I think it's important for families, for them to feel that they're not forgotten. I mean, part of our Memory Stones is, and this is part of what we'll talk about on Sunday evening, is we are campaigning for a permanent memorial here in Northern Ireland. The cemetery, I used to go to the cemetery on a Sunday. I don't go now.
No.
I see the red and white tape round the graveside. I see the men in their white Hamas suits with their masks on. I remember going to touch Mummy's coffin and being told I couldn't be near it until it was in the hole in the ground. So I don't want to go to the cemetery, but I want somewhere to go that brings me peace and it allows me a reflective space.
And there'll be a lot of people watching this now who probably went through the same thing as you and are feeling the exact same as you're feeling now.
You know, my sister and I were the only two allowed at the graveside, and we were allowed another 8 family members, but they had to stand back. And the night before that, we were told only 2 of us could go.
Yeah.
And my brothers had already decided that my sister and I would go. But, you know, my brothers say that their last act for Mum was to carry the coffin, and of course they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't get to do that. That still hurts.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and on Sunday night we will have one of our group members, Hazel. She's going to talk about her mum and dad. She lost her mum and dad within a matter of weeks of each other, and how that has impacted on her. We're going to hear from 2 sisters, Wilma and Olive, and how they miss their sister Anne. Yeah. So these are people who are supporting us for the memorial because they know what it would mean to them. And the hope is that the Memory Stones become part of that memorial. You know, Kieran and I used to transport them, but we're well over 300 now. And unfortunately, the back end of the car can't take them being transported any longer. You know, so we are redoing them at this moment in time, but people will message me and saying, where can I go to see the Stoughton's? They want to go and see them.
Yeah.
You know, when you let somebody hold their stone, you see the emotion in their face. You know that for them, it's not just a solid stone. It signifies so much more. The thing about the stones is it will have something painted on it that is reflective of that person's life. We have, you know, I see in your backdrop, you have the Harland and Wolff images, you know, and that's what somebody will have in the stone. We'll have a minister who had a Bible. We have a young man who loved to fish, so he's in a boat with his fishing rod. Yeah. So everything on the stone says something about who that person was. It's almost like being able to give a bit of the eulogy that we didn't get to give. We're supported by Newton Abbey Arts and Cultural Network. They've supported us quite a few years. Their youth group come and sing fantastic for us. This year we also have, for the very first, we have a rock choir.
Right, okay.
Which I'm really looking forward to. And they're made up of members from Jordanstown, Ballymena and Ballymoney. And, you know, we will have poetry read out. We will have our stones on display. And we have photographs. But the main thing for us is to show people that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And there is support network out there. We have had great support from Cruise, and they do workshops for us. So every so often we bring families together and we do a workshop, and it's about destigmatising grief.
Yes, yeah.
You know, grief, when you have a loss, it brings brain fog.
Yeah,
you know, you don't function right, and people think that after a matter of weeks that should still go on. You know, that should be way, and that's not how it is. So we're saying to people, look, what you're experiencing is normal.
Yeah.
My brother was 40 years past there last September. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, I still cry for him. I miss him every single day. The only thing now is that I imagine him and mum and dad being together.
Exactly, yes, yeah.
And I get comfort in thinking that, because I do believe there's another life after this, that even though none of us were with mummy when she died, I like to think that my dad and my brother were there for her.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's how I get through my day.
Yes, yeah.
You know, but it still hurts.
So if people want to come along and share the evening with you, it's this coming Sunday, number 2 Royal Avenue. What time does it all start at then?
It starts at 2 o'clock to 4.
Okay.
And then Belfast City Hall will light up yellow, and other buildings across Northern Ireland will also light up in remembrance of all lives lost during the pandemic.
And if people want to come, just turn up.
Just turn up.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. The more, the merrier.
Yes, yeah.
Because as much as it is about a memorial and remembering, it's about a celebration of life.
Exactly, yeah.
So it is.
Yeah.
So thank you.
The best of luck with Sunday. And
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Right, time now to meet my final guest on the show this week, who is a female explorer. She is the founder of Woman with Altitude, and she also recreates some famous pioneering routes, but also does it wearing historically accurate clothing as well. Let's find out more, because Elise Wortley joins us on the line. Good to have you with us on the show tonight. First of all, talk us through this new research. We've discovered that over half of us cannot name a single female explorer, but there are loads of them.
Yeah, exactly. There's loads out there, and that's the thing. Throughout history and still today, exploration and adventure has been really seen and presented to us as a man's world. For years, this has been going on, and still today. So, yeah, the big aim of this project, which we're going to talk about, is to try and change that and to try and get more amazing, adventurous women that inspire me, that I know can inspire generations more people to sort of out into the forefront, and yeah, to inspire people.
Now, one lady who inspired you is Dorothy Pilley. Tell us more about her, because she's quite special.
Yeah, Dorothy's amazing. So she was a climber from here in the UK, and actually OnePlus have done this research that said only 3% of people here in the UK have ever even heard of Dorothy or know anything about her. And she was this groundbreaking climber that paved the way for women in mountaineering. She was so brave and went off and did this incredible stuff in the early 1900s. But she was really overlooked compared to a lot of her male counterparts. So she's one of the women that we're shining a light on at the moment, and we're going to go off and follow in her footsteps, just to raise her profile and to try and, yeah, bring her story to light, to try and inspire women to get out there and do adventurous things.
Now, one of Dorothy Pilley's famous treks was across Corsica. You're going to be recreating this, but also doing it in the costumes, in the clothing that they would have worn back in the day.
Yeah, so one part of my project, so I've been looking into these women from sort of adventure history for the last 7 years, and I found so many of them. And one thing that I noticed, that on top of everything they were fighting against, like society wise, you know, lots of these people, these women went off and did things when they were just supposed to stay at home and have children. So on top of all that was their clothing was quite often, because women weren't supposed to wear trousers, like that was really looked down upon. So their clothing, when they climbed mountains and did things, you know, sometimes they did it in massive dresses and corsets. And one thing I found was that actually they would put trousers sneakily on underneath the dresses and things, and then they'd get out of the main towns where they lived and they would take their dresses off and go and climb mountains. So the clothing has become a really important part of it. And I do it in the old stuff just to kind of show, you know, what they would have been up against, and also to understand a bit more about their journey, because I don't think I would understand fully, you know, the elements and how it felt for them climbing if I was in my sort of waterproof trousers and down jacket. But yeah, I'm going to be joined by Lotte Hintze and Aderne Pasban, who are two women who are kind of trailblazers in the adventure space today, and we're going to be going to Corsica and following in Dorothy's footsteps, to kind of commemorate her and celebrate her life.
So how difficult is this trek going to be?
Going to be trekking up, climbing up Monte Cinto, which is the highest point on the island, and just traveling across, visiting all the places that Dorothy talks about in her book Climbing Days, which is sort of a book she wrote all about her life and all about her climbs. We sort of tracked where she went through the book, and then we're going to go and visit the same places.
Wow. So where did your love for adventure and exploring, where did all this come from?
So I always call myself actually a bit of an accidental adventurer. I never meant to get into all of this. But I read a book by a woman adventurer called Alexandra David Neal when I was younger, and I was about 16, and I read this book and I was like, why have I not heard of this woman? Like, why have I only been taught about male explorers at school? And Alexandra was amazing. She was the first Western woman to meet the Dalai Lama. She went on this 14-year journey across Asia in 1910, walked most of it, and just wanted to learn more about Buddhism and really sort of immerse herself in societies and people that she met along the way. So her writing's so sort of precious and amazing, and I just couldn't believe I'd never heard of her, and a lot of people I asked hadn't. So that's where it all sort of came from. And then over the years I've just sort of kept following. I found more women. I've got a list of about 150 now of these incredible women, including people like Dorothy, who did incredible things but were really overlooked compared to their male counterparts. So it's grown into this big project that's super exciting.
Tell us about some of the other adventures that you've been on. What about the Valley of the Assassins in Iran? That's brave stuff.
So that was actually following Freya Stark, who's one of the more famous women, I'd say, from back. She wrote about 20 books that actually got published because a lot of their books didn't. I ended up going to Iran, to the Alborz Mountains, where this famous valley is. And even the assassins, they're this very old set of people that lived in these mountains. The video game Assassin's Creed, that's based on these people. So all these stories I started reading about, thinking, wow, that's amazing, she went there and did that. And incredible trip, like amazing place. The people are so kind and wonderful. It's changed a lot since I went there, obviously, which was a couple of years ago. But the project and these women and their stories have really sort of helped me and built me as a person. And hopefully I can sort of carry on doing it and inspiring other people with their stories along the way.
So where are you off to next then? Is there anywhere on your bucket list that you really want to go to?
I mean, I do have one dream, and it involves a pirate queen from Ireland, actually. And
Grace O'Malley.
Yeah. So she did this very famous journey from Clare Island, where her castle was, all the way down the English Channel and then up to Greenwich to meet Queen Elizabeth. And actually the monks tried to write Grace O'Malley out of history because she was so disruptive and they didn't like that. But because she had this very famous meeting with the Queen, that she kind of got, that people wrote about it, so she kind of stayed in history. And I'd love to recreate that journey she did on a big old gully boat, fill it with women, dress them as 1500s pirates, and do that up the Thames to Greenwich and go under Tower Bridge and stuff. So that's my dream trip, although it's very expensive because I have looked into it, but one day.
Well, that sounds amazing. The best of luck with the trek, and thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
So that's all we have time for this week. We'll see you back here same time next week. And of course, if you want to check out Elise Wortley's progress and how she's getting on with her adventures, just head over to the One Plus Europe YouTube channel. We'll see you back here same time next week. Good night.